In this blocks CAD tutorial, we're going to make a cube pattern. And we're going to randomize the color of each block, but we'll have some control over the block size and also the spacing between them and also the thickness. So every time you render, if you change some of the variables, you'll get a different pattern. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to get these cube cutouts, right, which are provided. And what that does, it just makes a cutout cube, right? What we want to do is we want to control this, parameterize some of these. So we want to control the size. Instead of 10, we want to make it a variable. So let's make a new variable called size. We also have to make a new variable for the 8 and the 12. And those are just mathematical formulas, right? The 8 is going to be size minus the thickness. So we're going to make a new variable thickness, and we'll make the variable thickness equal to 2 instead of 10. Should be 2. So let's make T8 a mathematical variable, a mathematical formula here, size minus the thickness. And then we'll make the next variable T12, and we'll make that equal to size plus the thickness. So we're doing everything on the fly here, right? Calculating. So now let's make these variables and put them into the correct slot, right? So we have size for 10, we have T12s, and we have T8s. So you need to make a few of these and just put them where they belong, right? So I'll let you do that. And we'll jump to the end here, and everything's been working. I did change that thickness to 2, by the way. So if you now go and you want to change something like to 5, the thickness to 5, you'll see it is automatically updated. And if you want to increase the size, you can make this bigger. Okay, so the next thing is we like to do we like to change the color. We have to randomize the color. So we'll get the color bar and we're going to change it to RGB, and we're going to randomize the three colors, R, G, and B. So we have 3 new variables. The first one will be our color, and that will be a random integer from 1 to 255. And we'll have R, G, and B, right? So each color, red, green, and blue, will be a random number. So let's get a variable and let's put them into that the corresponding block position. Okay, so once they're in position, we're going to put the block underneath, right? And now when you test this out, you're going to get a random color every time, right? Okay. So we got the block. Now we need to make a slew of them, a lot of them, right? We're going to use a loop, and we're going to control how many blocks we're making, right? So we're going to make a new variable called num_blocks. And I think right now, let's just make it 5. We'll do 5 by 5 by 5. So let's put that num_blocks into the correct slot from 1 to num_blocks, and that'll let us control how many blocks. So we need a nested loop here for X, Y, and Z. So we're going to duplicate this because we're in 3 dimensions. So this is a nested loop, and we're going to name each of these controls X, Y, and Z. So each block needs to be put into a different position, and we're going to put some space in between them. So let's make a new variable called gap, and at this point let's just make it equal to 1, right? So we have the size, we have the gap. Now we need to do a little calculation. So the position, let's say the X position, just to start with, will be equal to the size. It'll be equal to the size plus the gap. And we're going to multiply that by X. So we need to string together or daisy chain together a couple of formulas here. So as you see, we're going to say X times, right? We're going to get the x variable here. I'm going to say x times the size plus the gap. We need to change that T12 to size, right? And that will move them in the x position from left to right. We also have to do this for the other two variables too, right? So we're going to do the same thing, y position, and we're going to change that to y. We're going to do it for z position, right? And we're going to change that to z. Okay, so now we have the correct position for each block. Let's get the transform, and let's put in the variables that we calculated. So we have to put x position, y position, and z position into those transform slots. Once that's done, we need the cube. We need to make a cube, but we want to copy all this code, right? What we want to do is we want to make all this code into a function. Let's call it blocks or cubes, sorry. And then now this is a function that you can just execute whenever you want. You don't have to move all this code around. So here we go. So we have the position, we have the transform, we have the cube, and we have the loops. So let's test this now and see what we're getting. So if you render, you see you get the cubes, right? We have 5 by 5 here, and they're randomized color. If we want to change, let's say one of the parameters, let's say make the gap a little bit bigger, right? And let's re-render, and as you can see, the gap between them now is a little, we got a larger gap, right? What about if we want to increase the thickness, right? Or decrease the thickness, let's say make it 1, right? So if you now re-render, you see that the thickness of each block. So everything is done parametrically with variables. So play around with it and see what, what kind of fun, a little bit of fun you can have.